The New York Giants have a preseason game on Saturday, opening their preseason at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills. Ed Valentine of Big Blue View here with a new edition of the Valentine's Views podcast. So, with that game in mind, let's talk about what to expect, what not to expect, and some other things involving your New York Giants as the preseason, as training camp heads into a new phase now that we're into preseason games. And the thing that's been on my mind mostly with these preseason games, actually, I asked Brian Daboll about this on the very first day of training camp. He's about changes to his process, changes to practice, changes to preseason playing time plans, because the Giants in the last two seasons have been beaten 68-6 combined score in their week 1 losses at home, no less. At home, 68-6 in losses to the Dallas Cowboys and Minnesota Vikings. Embarrassing, utterly one-sided losses that were really losses, from the opening drive, from the very beginning of the game. Disaster struck in Dallas in 2023 with a blocked field goal on the first drive and Andrew Thomas getting hurt, and then Dallas going on to simply embarrass the Giants. And then last year, the Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold coming back to MetLife Stadium completely overwhelmed the Giants and left Minnesota coach Kevin O'Connell telling his players that they were better prepared, better conditioned, and better ready to execute plays as the season started. And any a head coach like Brian Daboll, who hears that from another head coach, should really be embarrassed. So the question becomes, what are the Giants going to do about 68-6? Brian Daboll has been, as usual, coy or not forthcoming about what his playing time plans are, for Saturday against the Bills and for the preseason in general. So I don't know what Daboll's going to do. I'm going to lay out something that I have been considering and talking with other folks about, and I think maybe I have even written it at bigblueview.com, but this is how I would handle preseason playing time if I were Brian Daboll. First of all, Malik Neighbors is not going to play. Dexter Lawrence is not going to play. Injured guys who haven't been practicing regularly, guys who are not 100% or as close to 100% as football players can get, those guys aren't going to play. But here's what I would do in the preseason. I would get reps in 2 of the 3 games for as many starters as possible. I know that this is Russell Wilson's 14th season in the NFL, but week 1 against the Buffalo Bills on Saturday, I would get Russ in the game for a series, 2 series, maybe a quarter, as many of the starters, as much of the starting offensive line as I possibly could. I might, 35-year-old Greg Van Roten probably doesn't need the snaps, but you could put Evan Neal in there and let Evan Neal play the entire first half at right guard. You could let him play part of the third quarter at left guard if you wanted to. He's adjusting to a new position. Get him as many reps as possible. Darius Slayton, even Russ himself, Greg Van Roten, some of the veteran guys on the roster this week talked about the value of those reps, especially for an offense that hasn't played together yet, for a defense that hasn't played together yet. Greg Van Roten said you don't want to walk into week 1 with that being the first time that you've gone out there as a team and done anything live that counted. So if it's me, I'm getting starters in 2 out of these 3 preseason games. and I'm getting as many starters as I can, probably a quarter worth of reps on Saturday against the Bills. The Bills are apparently going to play their starters some, but I don't care if they're going to or not. I think the Giants, one of the mistakes that I think Brian Daboll has made, one of the mistakes I think Joe Judge made before him was taking the New England Patriots route, taking the Bill Belichick route. And obviously Judge worked for Belichick, and Daboll also worked for Belichick as an assistant coach. And the way that Bill Belichick always did things in New England was he really looked at the first 4 games of the season as an extension of the preseason. He looked at that as the time to figure out what you had, who you had, how you wanted to use players, and to sort of develop a personality, develop the scheme that you wanted to use. And you know what? That's fine. That's 100% fine when you're an established annual playoff team, when you've got Super Bowl titles, when you've got Tom Brady, and when you're accidentally going to win 2 or 3 of those 4 games just because you have Brady and you have Gronkowski and you have Belichick and you have better talent than the guys on the other side of the football. It's not fine when you're the New York Giants and you have to scratch and fight and claw for every win. And if you don't win at least, 2 or 3 of those first 5 or 6 games, your season is over. Your season's over by the time it's a quarter of the way through if you're 1-3 or 0-4. And if you're Brian Daboll, you go 0-4 at the beginning of this season, and you're probably getting fired at the end of the year. So you can't, if you're the Giants, continue this. Well, the first quarter of the season is an extension of the preseason. So, we go light on guys playing in the preseason and all of that kind of stuff, because you can't throw away weeks of an NFL season. You only get 17 games. You only get 17 opportunities. And if you're lucky, if you're the Giants, if you're lucky, you're going to win 9 or 10 games. If things go extremely well, you can't put yourself behind the 8 ball from the beginning, which I think the Giants have done the first couple of years, or the last couple of years, excuse me. So for me, I want as many starters as possible in the game for a quarter, not a lot, quarter, couple of series, whatever. Just get them out there, get their feet wet, let them go through the process against another defense, let them tackle to the ground, let them get tackled to the ground, and move on from there. Week 2, I'm not playing any starters. I'm letting the undrafted free agents, the bottom of the roster guys, the guys competing for the final roster spots, I'm letting those guys play. I'm letting Tommy DeVito get a lot of burn, at quarterback. I'm letting Jackson Dart, if the Giants want to play him, a little bit, let him get some reps as he continues to develop. But the Giants in week 2 have 2 joint practices against the New York Jets. So for me, use those 2 padded practices, which are high intensity, a lot of excitement, a lot of fans. Use those 2 padded practices to get the reps that you need for your starters against another opponent, against someone other than your own defense, and then use week 2 to let the other guys play, to figure out what you have, to get young players some experience and sort of make some roster decisions. Then use week 3 as your dress rehearsal, where starters play a half, maybe a little bit more than that. The way I look at it, the way the schedule breaks down, the way the NFL does things now with the 3 preseason games, there are 16 days from the time that the Giants face the Patriots in the 3rd and final preseason game on a Thursday night until they open the season against the Washington Commanders. 16 days. That's more than 2 weeks. If starters don't play in week 3, if, for example, they choose to play starters in week 2, or they choose to only play them in week 1 and not play them at all the rest of the preseason, but let's say they choose to play them in week 2, then you're going 21 days without competition for these guys. And that, to me, is a recipe for disaster. That's screaming that it's going to be difficult to be prepared to play live football at NFL speed and at an NFL level without competition in 3 full weeks. So for me, play guys a little bit in week 1, play guys a fair amount, a half to a little bit more than a half in week 3 as the dress rehearsal, and get them ready for week 1 against the Commanders, week 2 against the Cowboys, and which are followed by home games against the Chiefs and the Chargers. And there are a lot of people that think the Giants will be 0-4 at the end of that stretch. And if they're 0-4, it's another lost season, and we could be headed for for more upheaval, for a coaching change. So maybe if the Giants can find a way to win one of those games, 2 of those games, go 1-3, and then beat the Saints in week 5, so you start the first third of the season 2-3, then maybe you have an opportunity to be relevant and to be at least on the periphery of the playoff race, for a good chunk of the season. But the start to this season is critical, and I, for one, want to see Brian Daboll push his starters, push his frontline guys a little bit harder in these upcoming preseason games. All right, let's move on to another topic that I wanted to hit here as we head into Saturday, and that really is players to watch, and it's mostly the young guys. Look, Jackson Dart is going to have everyone's attention justifiably. Abdul Carter is going to have everyone's attention when the Giants are on defense. Be everybody's first chance to see these guys in live action against another team. And I'm excited to see it. I hope you guys are excited to see it, particularly in reference to Dart. If things go well for Dart, don't put him in the Hall of Fame just yet. It's a preseason game, against, probably by the time he gets in the game, it'll be largely, second team guys, third team guys. If he does poorly, don't put him over there in the bust column just yet. It's all part of the process. It's part of the development. It's just an opportunity for Dart to continue to learn, to continue to develop until he gets to the point where the Giants do decide, whether that's at some point in 2025, whether it's in 2026, whenever the Giants decide to give Dart the keys to the castle and see what happens. So we'll see what happens. Another guy that I'm looking forward to is Evan Neal. I might have mentioned him before. These will be his first live reps as a guard, and I think the Giants will probably give him as much as he can physically handle on Saturday, get him as much experience as they can. I still believe that as much as I like Greg Van Roten is an adequate veteran player, I still believe it's better for the New York Giants. And I'm not going to give Evan Neal this job just to give it to him. But I believe it's better for the New York Giants if Evan Neal, a 25-year-old player, earns this job. He's a 340, 350-pound guy with the potential to be an outstanding physical run blocker, kind of guy who could really make an impact next to John Michael Schmitz, who sometimes struggles against power. Guy that could really help Jermaine Illuminor, at the right tackle. So if Evan Neal can win this job and be a good NFL guard, that is a really good thing for the New York Giants. Yes, it helps them get something out of a draft pick right now that has been a failure to this point. but more importantly, it helps the football team. It might give them a guy, if he plays well, a guy they can re-sign as a core part of the interior of that line for the next few years. We'll have to see. It would push Van Roten to a role I think he'd be very, very good in, which would be a role as a backup guard, backup center for the Giants, a guy that's been in the league in 10 years, made his NFL debut back in 2012. And I think that would be a terrific role for Van Roten to fill. So I have my fingers crossed that Neil wins that job and we get our first real indication of whether that might happen on Saturday afternoon. All right. The only other thing that I really wanted to mention, you guys who are watching the show, I'm guessing that most of you also read BigBlueView.com. You may also read other SB Nation team websites as well. Most of you know that SB Nation sites underwent a massive redesign over the last week. That also included not only redesigned sites, redesigned mobile platform. It also included, for those of us who work at SB Nation, it included being moved to a new writing and editing platform. But I know, I've seen some complaints. I've seen some people upset, and I understand nobody likes change. If I'm being 100% honest, I'm an older guy too. There are certain pieces of this change that I really like. There are certain pieces of this change that I would like to see tweaked, changed, whatever whatever may be. But what I will say is this: I know, the last time we did this was 10 or 11 years ago, and it upset people. But after that happened, after the dust settled, the site grew exponentially into what it is today. It was doing well then, and it exploded, and it's doing fantastically, now. So what I want to remind people is, yes, the design is different. Yes, it feels a little bit different, especially if you're using a tablet or you're using a desktop. I understand that it feels and looks a little different, but the content is the same. The staff is the same. I'm still there. Chris Flum is still there. Nick Filato, Tony Del Genio, all of our terrific writers are still there. The content is the same. The community is the same that you've been a part of for however long you've been reading and commenting at Big Blue View. None of that has changed. Yes, you have to physically maneuver the site a little bit differently. Yes, maybe the typography is a little bit different, but you're getting the same content that you've always had at Big Blue View. You're getting to communicate, to comment, to argue with the same people that you've enjoyed commenting with or who have driven you crazy, for the last several years. So in that sense, nothing has changed. I do know that the business has changed. The way people consume information has changed. I'm an older guy. I mean, I still use my laptop almost all the time to consume content, to write my content, all of that. But a great majority of our readership now comes from mobile, comes from people on their phones. We all have to be aware of that. And one of the major goals of this redesign was to make the mobile experience for Big Blue View readers, for SB Nation readers at large, to make that experience better. And I think we have. I think that the reaction on that side has been overwhelmingly positive. I think that mobile users are enjoying the platform. And if there are things that you find that you just can't do or can't use or can't find, send an email to bigblueview@gmail.com. We'll try to to guide you the best we can. But as I said, it's the same website. It's the same quality content. It's the same community that you've always enjoyed. So give it a chance, get used to it. As far as I know, some people haven't figured out yet what the new piece of the site is that you see, the piece that we call the feed. The feed is basically an upgraded, updated, fancier version of what used to be called fan posts. We're trying to display that in a better fashion, in a more noticeable fashion. The lifeblood of our websites is the community, and it's community discussion, and it's community involvement. And, we want you guys to use the feed, to express some opinion, to highlight things that maybe you want to highlight that maybe we're not talking about. Our contributors will also be posting to the feed. We'll be posting social media content. We'll be posting things that we might not ordinarily write about, but that we think and hope that you would like to discuss, that you would enjoy maybe a social media clip that you might enjoy watching. There's a Jameis Winston mic'd up at practice clip up there today. There's something the other day, question of the day from Giants practice that some of you enjoyed. There's a post from Tyrone Tracy, build the best running back of all time, that I see drew some comments. So we hope that you'll get used to seeing the feed, that you will try to use it, that you will engage with it. We hope that over time you will get used to navigating your way around the new site, which, to be honest with you, as an old newspaper design guy, I'm a fan of this new design. I had nothing to do with it, but when I built newspaper front pages, sports section front pages, which was part of my role as a news editor or as a sports editor, I liked the design work. I liked, I liked to use what we call air or white space, and there is a good amount of that here in the new design. We hope anyway that you guys will get used to the change in navigation, and that you'll remember that you're in the same friendly, analytical place that Big Blue View has always been. A place that strives to give you intelligent content, intelligent discussion on a daily basis. So give it time, give it a chance, and we hope that you will see over time the benefits of the changes that have been made. All right, Giants fans, thank you as always for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel here on YouTube. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.